Hey, listeners, before we begin today's episode, I have an exciting announcement to make. We've partnered with DCM Insights for a free masterclass on September 14th at 11 a.m. Mountain. This masterclass will feature someone familiar to the Sales Intelligence Weekly podcast, Mr. Matt Dixon, co-author of The Challenger Sale and his upcoming book, The Jolt Effect. He and I will present side by side and explore how B2B go-to-market teams can overcome customer indecision. Together, we're going to dissect why no decisions even occur, the psychology behind buyer behavior, how high performers overcome customer indecision, and why no decisions should be treated differently than losses. I'll be debuting some new proprietary research around no decisions from our 20 plus years of win-loss analysis, never before heard by the public. If you are in sales or marketing, this is a must-attend event. So go reserve your seat at www.primary-intel.com. This event is coming soon on September 14th, so don't miss it.
This podcast is brought to you by Primary Intelligence, the leader in win-loss analysis, focused on helping businesses uncover the unique story on how each sales rep can win more deals.
Hey everyone, and thanks for joining me on another rousing edition of Sales Intelligence Weekly, brought to you by Primary Intelligence. I'm Ryan Queller. The way buyers interact with sellers isn't changing. Newsflash, it has already changed. Gartner estimates that only 5% of the buyer's journey is spent with the sales rep, leaving about 95% of that buyer's journey for nurturing and buyer exploration. Buyers want to self-educate when evaluating a new solution and demand that self-education to be easy and make sense. In fact, a survey from DemandGen Report revealed that 77% of B2B buyers did not talk with a sales rep until after they had performed independent research. Okay, so the change has happened. What do we need to do differently? What do we need to do differently to better support our buyers' efforts early on in their investigation? How do we adjust our go-to-market initiatives and to match this changing buyer behavior? How can we provide the right information to the right buyers at the right time? Right. How do we educate and empower our buyers throughout the entire customer journey? A lot to chew on, I know, but the good thing is I've got somebody who's way smarter than me on the call today. Joining me on the show is my friend, Mr. Peyton Walbeck from Nectar. Peyton, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Happy to be here today and fun to be able to chat.
All right, Peyton, before we get into this, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about Nectar.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me again. I'm the head of marketing here at Nectar, and I started my career back in 2017, actually working in the funeral tech industry, which is kind of an odd industry to be in, but definitely an industry ripe for innovation. So I started out there doing B2B marketing, and then moved into retail marketing in the sporting goods industry. So kind of got a little bit of a different perspective on marketing strategies and techniques there. And then from there, for the last few years, I've worked in the B2B SaaS industry, both in the communications and texting-based software, and now here at Nectar in employee rewards and recognition and culture enablement software. So here at Nectar, we're focused on building great company culture, and we do it with a product that enables companies to be able to recognize employees, to create connection and give meaningful rewards, while also creating alignment around company values. So we have kind of created a framework that, after talking with hundreds of employees and leadership teams, we've been able to create kind of the way a framework, with key pillars that allows companies to be able to create that great culture that employees won't want to leave and that they'll want to stay at long term, and be able to have that well-being and the productivity and innovation that is needed to build a successful company. So that's kind of what we do here at Nectar.
So you said one of my favorite four-letter words, and that's alignment.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of culture and alignment working together are absolutely just brilliant. And anybody engaged in or endeavoring to that end, that's just phenomenal. So,
Yeah.
all right, my friend. Well, thank you for sharing. Let's hop into this conversation. How do you feel the B2B buyer's journey has changed? I mentioned this big change. It isn't changing. It has changed. What is this
Yeah.
change to which I'm speaking?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a huge thing is the way that the world has changed in, the last decade and the way that we consume information. I think obviously, 10, 15, 20 years ago, most of the information that we consumed every day was in, newspapers and print materials. And we would, look at that once a day, maybe in the morning. And then that was all the information that we consumed for that day. But, in 2012, I downloaded Instagram. In 2018, I downloaded LinkedIn. In 2022, now I've downloaded TikTok. And most of the information that we consume each day comes through these forms of communication. And I think that this has increased the capacity for buyers in all areas of business to do more research on their own when they're starting to look for solutions to problems that they have at their companies. And now all the information's out there, and people trust their own research a lot more than they trust, the sales rep from a company who might have cold called them and convinced them to get onto a demo. They might listen to that rep and hear what they have to say about their solution, but they don't trust that that rep is giving them, an objective view of, are there other solutions like them that are better for them? So buyers want to do the research themselves. And they more than ever, they can do that research on their own because of the plethora and the vast, availability of information that we have with, all of these forms of social media and communities and whatnot.
So are you saying then that the way that we consume, that buyers consume, educate themselves, is largely using social media and online tools? Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, exactly. That's, definitely where the world has come in the last, 10 years. We've seen just drastic strides forward, and how much time per day people spend on social media consuming information is both sad and I guess great for some of us at the same time. But
Yeah, sad. Whatever your opinion is, it is what it is. Here we
yeah,
are.
exactly. Yep.
Right. Okay. So that's what has changed. And the other part that you said that really piqued my interest is
Yeah.
that buyers want to self-educate, and they used another key word for me, and that's trust. They trust their own research more than they trust a seller. Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, when I get onto, say, for example, someone cold called me and they said something that piqued my interest about a problem that I'm facing. And so they convinced me to hop onto a demo call with one of their account executives. And, that account executive is going to walk me through a solution that they have to the problem that I'm facing. But what I'm going to do when I hop off that call is, I'm going to go straight to, my online communities. I'm going to go straight to, research reports and review sites. And I'm going to, figure out if that's actually the best solution for me. So the companies that are going to have the biggest advantage and kind of, almost an unfair competitive advantage for their category is that they're going to educate buyers before they ever talk to a seller on what solution is best for them. And then when that buyer goes and, enters into that buying cycle to a point where they're ready to look for a solution, they're going to go straight to you and not even consider other competitors because you've created that trust with them by, being in their communities, by, being part of the content that they consume every day, and that you've educated them on the topic that interests them at that time. And it's, you're going to be viewed as the expert in that category, and people are going to want to buy from the expert. So
Okay, so trust used to be, in the old way of selling, it used to be, all right, I'm going to spend time, we're going to belly up at a restaurant or a bar or the golf course, or, I'm going to fly out and go see you. And all of this expense, a lot of human to human kind of face to face
yeah,
kind of thing. In fact, at a previous employer that I worked at, the face to face hours was a lead measure. The number of face to face hours was a
yeah,
lead measure or an indicator of success. If you spent X number of face-to-face hours with your buyer, you were going to hit your goal.
Mhm.
What I'm hearing you say is, and that's how trust was built back then. What you're saying is that trust is actually built in a different way. And you said being in their community. What do you mean being in the community? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of, to kind of go maybe off track a little bit, but being able to understand who your buyers are and doing the proper buyer research to understand where is it that they spend time. Is it in a Facebook group? Is it in, do they all listen to the same podcast? Are they all part of, some other community of, is it Rev Genius? Is it, what is it that where they spend time and consume information from other peers and other experts in their field, that when they have a problem, they're going to go there and say, hey, who in this community has a tool that they use to solve this problem? And then people are going to give them suggestions, and those are going to be the main places that they go to look for that solution. They'll look at those companies first. And so being able to identify in your target market and from your ideal customer, where do they spend time, where do they consume information, and then making sure that you appear in those places and that you're active there and that you are contributing and positioning yourself in that area as an expert and as someone who has value to provide them.
So reading a book and that by Ezra Klein called Why We're Polarized, a phenomenal read, really interesting. And in the book, he talks about the idea of identity, that we all have multiple identities. And in marketing, we've oftentimes called it personas, right? But identities. And the communities, when you're talking about I take it back to the community and ask, what products are you guys using? What works well for you all? There is a sense of trust baked into the community because of the identity that's attached to it. And the more people voice a positive or a negative opinion about a thing, the more we tend to accept it without going deeper because of our identity, our protective nature to, I don't remember, it's called, it's like identity protective cognition, I think is what it's called, about, protecting the group identity. So how do marketers, how do we deal with this on the front end, knowing that people are really, it feels like it's out of our control. We don't basically control anymore. Is that a fair paradigm, or is that wrong? Dispel that we're out of control here, or do we just need to control differently?
So, I mean, I think that the idea, of trying to control, the buyer journey has really led marketers in a bad direction at a lot of companies. I think that, instead of having to have control over what the buyer journey looks like, it's more just making sure, or I guess first identifying what it is that we want buyers to know, and what they need to know before they come and have a sales conversation with us. And then we don't have to worry as much about, what stage is this buyer in, which direction do we need to lead them down. It's more just, how can we make sure that we create all of the content that gives all of the right messages needed for buyers to be ready to come talk to sales. So, I think that could mean, if we decided as a company, all right, for our buyers to be able to be ready to talk with sales, we want them to know what we do, why what we do is important to them, who that they know uses our product, what results those people have seen from our product, and maybe how much is this product going to cost them. And so if we can kind of make sure that all of our content is focused on these pillars, that they're all things that we want our buyers to know. It matters less where they are in the buyer journey, and more just that they have all of this information available to them and they can walk themselves through that process. And yeah, we don't have control over, which way they go first, but we know that if they consume all of these different pieces of information, and if what we're saying actually resonates with them because we've done that proper research from our target market, then we know that they're going to come to our website, they're going to request a demo from us, and they're going to be able to approach that conversation with our sales team, already knowing the key things that, will ultimately allow our sales team to be able to hit their quotas, because they're qualified buyers who are coming to talk with them. And they aren't having to try and educate someone on their problem who isn't ready to buy, because marketing has done its job to be able to, maybe give up control, but be able to give the necessary information and make it available in the right distribution channels for buyers to have done that proper research beforehand. So it's kind of, buyers guiding themselves towards talking to our sales team because they have the needed information to be able to, logically make that choice.
So you had a post on LinkedIn that talked about this very thing. I think the company is maybe Winter.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience here and unpack that for me a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, this kind of comes to, a lot of, things that Chris Walker and Dave Gerhardt, Gaetano Donardi, these kind of leaders in B2B SaaS talk about the big difference between creating demand and capturing demand. And it's really important concept for marketers to understand because it really guides what kind of a strategy you're creating and what kind of a foundation. So, for this example with Winter, I had never heard of Winter before. I had never even heard of the kind of solution that they had. I didn't know that I even had a problem that needed to be solved. But I started being targeted by ads in my LinkedIn feed from Winter, that explained to me what it is that this software does. And they used very, compelling copy, and they used headlines in their ads, that packed a punch, and all of it was stuff that I could consume in platform. I didn't have to click on their ad to go and read some article. All of their message was displayed within the ad itself. So all I had to do was look at it. And it conveyed to me what they did, and over time it conveyed to me why that's important for us, what we're giving up, what the consequences are of not using that kind of a solution. And then it showed me who else is using that same product, the differences of them before the product and after the product. And then, I still wasn't ready to look for that because it had to do with, writing copy, and I wasn't at a point where I was writing much copy. But, months later, I was, revamping our website and our homepage, and I got to a point where I'm now writing copy. And as I'm writing that copy, the questions coming to my mind are, is this resonating? Will this copy resonate with people who visit this website? And what came to mind was Winter, because that's the exact message that they had been communicating to me in the platform where I spend time for months. And so, they had created demand for their product where it hadn't existed before. I never would have even thought to look for that kind of a solution because I didn't know that I had a problem. So being able to create that demand, and then, having the right processes in place to capture that demand once it's been created through their website, having, forms that, provide the least amount of friction as possible, and getting in touch with their sales team. Those things combined, with having the right demand created by, good content that resonated with me because they had done the research. And then, being able to have the right processes in place to capture that demand is really, I think, the process and the overall strategy that a lot of marketers in today's B2B world are kind of missing out on.
So one of those ways that the change has enabled marketers to get very focused with their messaging. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see with organizations that haven't quite figured it out yet are the ones that try to push too many business propositions to too wide of a group. And what Winter did was targeted you with a very specific solution to a problem that they thought a person like you might have in the future, which it worked. How do we find that, right? How do we go about understanding what our buyers' needs are so that we can support those needs with the right information and the right education? What are the means of gaining that understanding?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's so easy for us in SaaS to be able to get feedback on product. We're always innovating the product. It's always about, how do we get feedback from customers on, what features they want, being able to get feedback on issues with the product and how we can develop it better to better fit their needs. But then when it comes to, understanding our marketing strategy and how it is that we can innovate it and develop it to fit customer needs, we forget, that means getting feedback from customers constantly. And so being able to set up processes that, allow marketers, and not just, the interns and stuff, but having marketing leadership and C-level executives, being able to have them talk with customers, on a frequent basis, and be able to, hear from their own mouths, what it is that resonates with them. What is the messaging, that is going to resonate with them, because we understand the problems that they're currently facing. And especially in a world like now where we see that things are changing rapidly, it's really, really important that we can constantly be in touch with our customers to be able to evolve the product and the strategic narrative and the messaging and the positioning of our product in a way that kind of keeps up with that cadence of change that we see, not just in the world, but in our specific markets as well. So
when you're listening to the voice of your customer, what are you listening for specifically? You mentioned some of the things that excite them or cause them to do, but really, what are some of the things that really make your antenna really stand up and go?
yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me on calls is that I just really want to understand, we talked a little bit about empathy earlier. I want to really understand what it is that they're facing. What is it in their day-to-day life that, their responsibilities, what metrics do they report on that cause them stress? What is it that really takes up that bandwidth in their mind, that if we think about that from their perspective, we're going to know, okay, looking at it from the way that they see things and the stresses that they have and the metrics that they have to report on that determine their bonuses or that determine whether or not they get laid off during a recession or something, what is it that's important to them? And how is it that our product can better support that? Is it something that is even related to our product, or is it something totally different? Should we be pushing into creating a new category, or is it, something that we can easily add on to our existing product? And so I think that if you can really get into their mind and see things how they see things, and really know them better than anyone else in the company because you talk to them, and I think that that's really what's going to guide you, in your entire go-to-market strategy, but also in your product development and your messaging and marketing, your positioning and developing what your strategic narrative is going forward, to be able to, ultimately develop the category that you're creating, if that's the road that you're on. So,
on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being most important, 1, not at all. What value in terms of importance would you give to listening to the voice of your customer?
I mean, I have to say 10, just because.
Okay. To why a 10?
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, the voice of your customer is going to guide everything. Kind of like I was saying before. That's when I first joined Nectar here, and the first 2 weeks that I was here, my number one goal and the only thing that I was focused on was talking to as many customers as possible, because it would have been impossible for me to start anywhere without knowing, what it is that our customers are facing. Why is it that they searched for a solution like this? What are the problems that they needed solved? And, how is it that they went about searching for that solution? Did they Google? Did they go to communities? Every tactic that I was going to employ and develop into a marketing strategy was going to be, directly based off of the feedback from customers and really understanding them. So that's always, for me, step number one when I go to a company is I need to understand the customers, because if I were to start doing anything right now, just without knowing the customers, I could be going in a wrong, completely wrong direction. So I think that in terms of importance, it has to be, at least up there to a 9 or a 10.
So as we're talking, it occurred to me that the buyer's journey has changed, right? And they're doing more and more education on the front end, self-education. We need to be listening even more closely to the customer, and without that paradigm or that shape of listening, that influence of listening to the voice of the customer, really we are likely to go down the wrong path. To your point, so there's a couple ways to consume that kind of information, like hearing the voice of the customer. The ones like postmortem, like what we do at win-loss analysis with TruVoice and at Primary Intelligence. There's another side. There's the front end as well. Do you ever listen to buyer calls, like actual sales calls, and why? As a marketer, why would you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually had a LinkedIn post about this the other day, where I typically listen to between 2 and 3 sales calls every single day, just because I want to know, one, what messaging are our sales team using, and is it working? Does it sound like it's resonating with buyers? They're kind of on the front lines of talking to buyers. It's pretty easy for me to talk with customers, but talking with buyers is a little bit more difficult. So for the sales team, to have them talking with buyers and using different messaging, testing, different ways of approaching those sales calls. It's really great for me and valuable as a marketer to be able to see, in those calls, what messages resonate the most. What are the things that the sales team is saying to those buyers where their reaction is, wow, yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for. That's the exact problem that we're having right now. That's what we're trying to solve. So I think as a marketer, watching those calls and, even ideally being, in on those calls and being able to engage directly with buyers is invaluable to be able to hone in on that messaging and really understand how buyers are seeing these problems before they ever become a customer.
Love that. Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit and go towards this path of, how can go-to-market teams align, right? So you talked about, you mentioned one of my favorite 4 little words at the very beginning of the show, and that was alignment.
Yeah.
How do go-to-market teams align to enable buyers to purchase? I mean, that seems to be one of the most important and difficult obstacles or goals of any organization. How do we do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think, all of it starts at the very top, with the executives who are crafting and determining the strategic narrative of the company. What is it that we're aiming towards? What is the change in, in business or in the world that we're proposing, and that, really drives the messaging and the positioning of our product. And you have to be able to, have that strategic narrative written down somewhere where the leader of, each department has access to that, and you frequently go over that. And if there's updates to it, everyone is on the same page, and they know what the narrative of the company is. And then from there, just being able to have open communication between departments. You have to have leaders of each department that are frequently talking with each other, and that are, seeing what they're doing as, valuable towards that narrative, and what other departments are doing as also valuable towards that narrative, and how it is that we can work together to be able to accomplish that. So, for sales, it's really important to me to be able to understand, I don't get to watch every single call that they have, but they're frequently talking with buyers all day. So, at my last company, I created a Google survey, and I sent it out to our entire sales team with, questions like, hey, what do you wish buyers knew before they got into a call with you? What are the top 3 things, that buyers, typically don't know? Or, just being able to understand what the problems are that they're facing, and that helps align, the sales and the marketing team. And, when you look at like the revenue strategy, what are the goals of marketing? Is it revenue that we ultimately answer to, or is it demos booked, or is it just amount of leads? Is it MQLs? And misaligned goals can have negative implications, as maybe our leads aren't qualified leads, and there's no real standard of what is a qualified lead, and so sales stops hitting their quotas because the marketing leads just aren't good enough. But according to our marketing goals, we're over, and so we're doing great. So I think that you can easily create misalignment, by not having goals that are aligned, by not having leadership, that are communicating with each other and all aligned towards the same narrative that is being decided by the executive team. That's kind of how I view it.
So I love that. I heard somebody once say that the most common the easiest errors to spot are the ones where somebody misses a goal, and it's clearly broken, or a process is broken. But the one that's most difficult, and the one that can sink your battleship, the one that can actually wreck an organization, are when, disparate, all of the different go-to-market organizations inside of a company have goals that they're hitting that don't work well together, that are broken. Yeah. And so it's like this synergistic value where everything that's firing according to its system isn't actually producing the result, the over the top level result that they want. So how does cultural alignment, that's the other piece that I really, dug at the beginning of our conversation here. Mm-hmm. How does cultural alignment help with overcoming maybe those disparate systems and processes that might be working, in a solitary or a silo, but maybe when they come together, they don't work so well? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I think of, cultural alignment, it has to do with, the company values, the company mission, and the company narrative. And the question, just really becomes, how is it that we can align everyone in all different departments, and whether they're remote workers or in-office workers or hybrid, how is it that we can align everyone around those values of our company, around our specific mission and narrative. And that's kind of where Nectar comes into play, is one of our key benefits that we evangelize, is being able to have a system where your values aren't just a poster on the wall that people glance at every now and then as they walk through the office, but they're actually values that people recognize every day, that people are doing and living, and that company mission is something that's always at the top of people's minds. And executive teams spend a good amount of time when a company is first founded, figuring out what this mission is and what these values should be, and what is our narrative. They're always working on that. To be able to have that alignment across the company, we have to be able to have the processes in place that make sure that it's always top of mind. And so that's where a product like Nectar can be really valuable, and being able to ensure that that alignment does exist. And when it does exist, it's so important, because that's what the founders had decided was going to be the most important things and factors in pushing the company growth forward. So yeah, I think that it's something that not a lot of companies have thought about. They always think about how important the values are when they're first created, but then they kind of just don't get mentioned again until the all hands meeting, and people notice them there and then don't think about them again until the next month. So yeah, I think that
Cultural artifacts are not the culture, right? They're the proposed, the espoused, or the desired output.
mhm,
The artifacting, that the posters on the wall, the colors, the whatever, the mug, hey, I got the mug or the hat or the
yeah,
t-shirt, whatever, those are part of it. But if we don't have the behavior that goes with it, those become fodder. It's like you said, it's no longer the thing. So it's true alignment. I love that. So
exactly.
Peyton, this has been a wonderful conversation. If you were to leave our listeners one piece of advice on what they could do, any advice on how they could enable and educate their buyers earlier in the sales cycle, what would that one piece of advice be?
Yeah, I think it would be just to kind of focus less on how B2B marketing and selling has been done historically, and focus in more on how your specific buyers want that process to go. Do the research, talk with buyers, talk with customers, ask them if looking for a product like ours, how do you want that process to go? What things do you want to know before you talk to the sales team? And then experiment, look for positive signals as you go developing your strategy around how your buyers have told you they want that process to be. And then when you see those positive signals, double down and, make that into a process that you can scale. I think that B2B buying and B2B marketing specifically is ready for some innovation. And I think that those who know their customers the best are going to be able to come out on top and be the ultimate winners. So yeah, I think that more than anything, it's talk to your buyers, talk to your customers, figure out what that ideal process looks like, and start building it.
Love it. Peyton, man, thanks so much for being on the show today and for joining us and chewing on all this. It was a lot. It's really been great having you on the show.
Hey, thanks. It was great to be here, and glad to be able to meet you and chat for a while.
And listeners, for more from our friends at Nectar and from us here at Primary Intelligence, check out the show notes at www.primary-intel.com/podcast. And remember, no deal is out of reach. We'll see you next time.